Under Plum Lake by Lionel Davidson. Chapter 6, Who's There? I landed on the platform and flashed the light in the cave and saw it was deep. It is nearly 24 feet. I examined it a long time before moving. I saw the floor was safe and inspected the roof and walls. I saw the iron bolts in the wall and the barrel of hard tar secured there. The floor was scattered with stones and rubbish flung in by the sea. It sloped down backwards, and there were 2 steps down to it from the platform. I went carefully down them and saw on the floor of the cave a hole. I shone the flashlight in and saw the water at the bottom and knew immediately it was the sea because it was moving. I also saw rugs set in the side of the hole, and the chain secured the third one. I also saw rungs set in the side of the hole, and the chain secured to a third one. I didn't look further around the cave. I checked the chain. I stood on the first rung and put weight on it. And it held. So I did the second and the third and grasped the chain and pulled. Something shifted at the other end, but it wouldn't come. And I put my foot to go lower, but found the next rung was in the water. So I went up and took my sneakers and socks off. While I was at it, I took everything off. I took my wind cheater and pullover off, and my watch, then the rest. I wedged the flashlight near the hole, and just then the light shone back at me. It wasn't my light. It came floating up out of the hole. It floated 2 or 3 feet and stopped, and my heart jumped in my throat. I said, "Who's there?" He said, "Who's there?" A kid came out of the hole. He had nothing on. I said, "How did you get there?" He said, "How did you get there?" He put out a hand and touched my forehead, so that a kind of headache came and went very fast. He'd just been repeating what I'd said, but he said something else then. He said, "I came in my boat. It's here. You can see it." He walked 2 steps to the platform and pointed, and I followed him and saw it. It was a canoe bobbing in the moonlight a few yards away. I hadn't seen a canoe as I came down the cliff. It was a funny time to be canoeing. He said, "You're Barry, aren't you?" I said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm Dido." Dido, he said it. I said, "How do you know my name?" He said, "I've heard it. Are you on holiday here?" He was fairer than the seal kids. His hair was white. "Yes," he said. "Come down the hole. There's a tunnel. I came through it. I've got a waterproof light. There's a barrel and a box there, both very old." "Is it safe?" I said. I said it for something to say. I had no idea of going down the hole with him. "Sure. You push yourself under and walk. You just walk in the tunnel. When you need a breather, you come up this side. Or you go out in the sea. It's safe," he said. He stepped down off the platform and walked to the hole. "I'll go first," he said. He went down the rungs and pushed himself under, and the water turned bright green. After a while it faded and the chain moved. It clanked up and down a few times as if he were tugging it. I didn't know if he were signaling me to follow. I didn't do anything. I just watched the hole, and in a few seconds it flashed green again and he surfaced. "You didn't come," he said. I didn't know what to do. He'd seen I'd taken my clothes off, as if I'd meant to try. "Come," he said. He backed away from the rungs, and I went down. "Duck," he said. I hung on a rung and ducked, and came up panting. It was cold as ice. "I'll go first," he said again. "Give me a tug when you want a breather." He didn't look at me. He just ducked, and I took a breath and ducked too. It was emerald green in the tunnel. His light was brighter in the water, and everything was magnified. I saw individual grains of sand floating. I saw my hands big and pink in front of me. I saw him big and pink. He was holding the light low and pointing it, so it lit up the place. We were walking in slow motion down a green crystal passage with an arched roof. He turned and saw my head slightly graze the roof, and he tapped his own and bent to show what I should do. I nodded, and he pointed to the chain. It was sagging along the sliding wall of the tunnel, rusted and flaking, and a few yards away 2 big objects attached to it moved gently up and down, partially blocked the tunnel. I pulled myself along the walls and got to the barrel and box. They were painted with tar. He watched me feeling them and motioned farther along. Then he looked at me and pointed upwards to see if I needed a breather yet. I shook my head, and he shone the light at the far end. Then he ducked under the obstruction, and I followed him. It was only a few yards farther. A pulley was stuck in the wall, and the chain ran through. It was rusted and covered with barnacles. But I'd had enough suddenly. I needed air. I gave him a tug and pointed up and turned. But he caught my arm and pointed the other way, toward the sea. He didn't wait for my agreement. He just took off with the light. I followed close behind, my lungs bursting. I saw him go out the end of the tunnel, and the light turned murkier. He waited for me in the sea, keeping himself under. He took my hand as I came out. I felt myself choking and kicked out, and in seconds broke surface. He backed off in the water as I gasped and coughed. "We were down too long," he said. "I'm sorry." "It's all right," I said. "Come and rest on the boat." It was bobbing a few yards away, and he swam to it. I waited a while, coughing, before turning there, and he helped me in, and I sat and got my breath. It was a little canoe, 6 or 7 feet. All around, the breeze was wrinkling the water. He saw me rubbing myself in the breeze. "Come and dry off," he said. "Over here." He went to the end of the boat, and I followed. "There are 2 steps," he said, and watched till I went down. "Now in here," he said, and opened the door. It was a room about 30 feet long. There was a carpet on the floor, and a sofa all along one wall. There were easy chairs and a low table, and music was playing softly. And that's the end of part 6.